Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, and welcome back to this next video. And this is the 14th video in the series of videos on immunology. And in this particular video, I want to focus on the pathogen recognition, which is a very complex kind of the process. And this is the part 1 on the pathogen recognition. Now, an effective defense, an effective immune defense that relies heavily on the nature of the invading pathogens, as there are a lot of pathogens in there. A lot of pathogens are there that can cause diseases in the host, particularly if you talk about the human beings. So the immune system, or the effective defense that heavily relies on the nature of the invading pathogen. Now, when you talk about the cells and the molecules of an immune system that are activated in a given immune response, that depend on two things. One, the chemical structures that are present on the pathogen, and the location of the response. So in my next video, I'll be telling you that these chemical structures which are present on the pathogen, they can be present inside or they can be present outside of the host cell. So if the pathogen that is invading the cell, that means that these chemical structure would be present inside the cell, and if they are not invading the cell, they are there in the extracellular matrix. So these chemical structure that will be present outside the host cell. But these are the two important things that are responsible for the activation of specific immune cells and specific molecules of an immune response: the chemical structures which are present on the pathogen and the location of the response. Now, what this means is that different chemical structures, by that I mean that different kind of the pathogens, and the microenvironmental cues, by that I mean the location of the response, that need to be detected and appropriately evaluated. So if you are not able to properly evaluate them, you will not be in the position to have an effective and specific response strategy. So for an effective and specific response strategy, that means that you need to understand the different chemical structures and the microenvironmental cues, so they need to be detected and properly evaluated. Now, if you talk about the recognition of the pathogen, so the process of this pathogen recognition that involves an interaction between the foreign organism, by that I mean a pathogen, and a recognition molecule or molecules that are expressed by the host cell. What this means is that the effective immune response, for an effective immune response, there should be an interaction between the pathogen and the host cells. Now, when you talk about the host cells and when you talk about these recognition molecules, so these recognition molecules, they are like, in most of the cases, they are membrane bound receptors, but there can be soluble receptors, or there can be secreted recognition molecules like the cytokines or the complement system. They can be engaged. So when you talk about the host and when you talk about these recognition molecules, these can be the examples of these recognition molecules. When you talk about the pathogen, so so these recognition molecules, they are going to recognize the different molecules on the pathogen. That can include the whole pathogen, that can include the antigenic fragments of the pathogens or secreted products. If I put this simply, what this means is that there would be an interaction between the recognition molecules of the host and the ligands present on this pathogen, and this is actually the interaction between these ligands and these recognition molecules which is able to initiate a specific immune response. Now, this interaction between the ligand and the receptor, that is going to result in a lot of events, in a cascade of events that ultimately lead to the labeling and destruction of the pathogen, and you can simply call this as the immune response. There is an interaction between the pathogen and the host immune cells or molecules, and this particular interaction has led to the labeling and destruction of the pathogen. Now, this immune response, as I've told you in my previous videos, this can involve a complex system of the cells that can recognize and kill or engulf the pathogen. In that particular case, you can call it as the cellular immunity. and as well as the soluble proteins. In that particular case, you can call that is the humoral immunity. So if you look at this immune response, so this would be a combination of the cellular immunity and the humoral immunity, thereby clearing a pathogens from the host. So if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell and share it with your friends. And in my next video, I'll be giving you examples of the pathogens that can enter inside the cell. By that I mean that the ligands would be present inside the cell, and the pathogen that are residing outside the cell, and in that particular case, the ligand that would be present outside the cell.